Hey, folks, welcome back to another episode of the League of Logic podcast, a podcast where you can learn how to think for yourself. We are glad you tuned in. We got a random one for you today. Before we get started in our conversation, we'd like to invite you to check out our website, leagueoflogic.com. That is leagueoflogic.com. On that website, you can find some study tools that would help you in your search for truth, 4 basic pillars of logical thinking. Also on that site, there's a resource page with some cool videos. And finally, we have a contact us. We would love to hear from you. Send us some questions, send us some reviews, send us some complaints. We listen to it all. Might not pay attention to the complaints as much, though. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, check us out on social media platforms, too. Facebook and X and Truth Social and Rumble. We're back on YouTube again. Be sure you like, subscribe, follow, and share it. Help us get the word out for everybody else. That would be greatly appreciated. All right, folks. We sit back, relax, and get ready for another conversation in truth. Woo! What's happening, folks? What's happening, man? What's happening? Okay.
I think it's interesting. We're back on one of the platforms, and I'm going to say something to see if we get booted.
Yeah, give it the boot. Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
What I was talking about earlier. I haven't looked at anything with Mike Lindell in a long time. It's called Lindell TV now. Remember when he started out? What was it called before? Frank Speech.
Frank Speech. That's right.
Speech,
Yeah.
Anyhow, I went back just to see what was going on, and I saw this ad for All Family Pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting. You know, 4 states now they have, I think, ivermectin's over the counter.
Sweet.
Is it 4?
I don't know.
Maybe 6.
I ain't been keeping.
I know one for sure. Sarah Huckabee made it legal in her state.
That's cool.
Yeah. Anyhow, you can buy it over the counter. Well, anyhow, I guess they're a local company, and I say local, domestic. It's United States, but they're selling ivermectin tablets right there in the open. Along with that, they're also selling fenbendazole or menbendazole, which is what Joe Rogan had on his podcast. And Mel Gibson said 4 of his friends are cured for cancer, stage 4 cancer, by taking those 2 things.
Yeah.
So now that's opened a big door, you know.
The
discussion's gotten big, and so we'll see what happens. We might be bye-bye on one of these platforms again.
Right.
But it is interesting.
Yeah.
And hey, I'm all about it, man. It's All Family Pharmacy. Check it out.
All Family Pharmacy. Is that their website? allfamilypharmacy.com.
That is it.
Sweet. It's also Father's Day today, too, right?
Yeah, Father's Day. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. You hear that comedian guy talk about the rankings of the holidays?
No.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I can't remember who he was. I'll try to find it and put it on there. It's a real short clip. He said, Father's Day coming up, and in America, Father's Day ranks somewhere around 28 or something like that, as far as the favorite holidays.
I didn't know there was 28 holidays.
That's what he said. He's like, Christmas is number 1, and then Thanksgiving, and then Halloween, and then Easter, and then Mother's Day. So that's like the top 5. And he said, but to be honest with you, I can't think of 18 other holidays in between. And what kind of crap is that, man?
They keep adding them.
Yeah.
That's government for you. So they can take more days off, get paid.
Father's Day. Yeah. Anyway, Halloween ranks above it.
That's
above Father's Day.
That's scary.
Yeah, dead people with
no pun intended.
Ghouls and goblins are more important than pops.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's gotten now when you get old, see, and you got kids, and then your kids have kids and all that kind of stuff, you kind of have to put Father's Day to the side and say, we did mine yesterday, kind of. Cause they got to do their own thing.
Now it's your turn to do yours.
Yeah. It's their turns.
Yeah. Anyway.
Happy Father's Day to my son and son-in-laws.
Yeah, that's cool. I ain't got there yet. So still my day.
Yeah.
It's funny though, we were talking this week, they keep asking me, what do you want to do for Father's Day? What do you want to do for Father's Day? And I was like, I don't know. Let's just have some sandwiches or something.
Yeah, sit on the recliner in your underwear and eat.
And they were like, that's no fun. We don't want to do that. We got to do something big. I said, look, I thought it was Father's Day. Why can't I decide what I want to do for Father's Day? Anyway, you don't get that luxury. It ain't the same as Mother's Day.
Anyhow.
Hey, what's happening in Israel and Iraqi?
Dude, I
And
did see
Iran.
where, yeah, I did see where I was surprised. I think some Iran's missiles made it through to Tel Aviv or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
surprised that that happened.
Yeah, with the dome thing they
Yeah,
got.
with the Iron Dome. I think I read somewhere. I haven't kept that. I've been bad this
I
weekend. I
read
haven't really checked
one
it.
article this weekend. I think it might have, and it was from Breitbart. It just said that the Iran had counterattacked. It won't quite 100 missiles they fired like all at once, and there was 40 injuries that were sustained in Israel over it. So I guess one or two must have got through.
Huh.
Yeah, it happened Friday night.
You know something I've that's seems odd to me that you don't see anymore. 10 or 15 years ago, if this was going on between Iran and Israel, because I mean that kind of thing hasn't happened in a long time, people would be screaming it's the end of days,
Yeah.
and I'm not seeing that.
That's I was going to ask the same thing because what happened to the end of the age people? The end of
It is
times.
kind of strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't believe we have a clue, and I think we've been in the end of days.
But maybe that's the sign that we got now that it's real because no one's saying nothing.
I don't want to go down a big theology
No. I was
deal,
looking.
but Iran is one of those angels, one of those heads, one of those nations. I believe that's going to come across.
Yeah.
Will come against Israel, Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Turkey.
I heard a dude one time relate the horsemen, the colors that were given for the horsemen, the white, the black, red, and green, or whatever, related it to all the flags over there, Israel and Iran, and they all have the same colors in their flag. I don't know. I've never been able to do stuff like that.
Look, the Bible, most of what's in, pretty much all of it, except for Asia and stuff, but that's where it all happened, man.
Mm-hmm. That is it.
Those are the lands.
Hey, did you go to a protest yesterday?
Sure did. Spent all day there. I didn't even look at any of this.
I didn't even pay.
It's so ridiculous, man.
No king.
Hey,
I'm glad they feel that way because we don't have one.
when I first saw that they were doing that, actually went on the map. There's a bunch of them in North Carolina. There's one in Smithfield. I can't remember where it was at.
It was at the courthouse.
Is that where it was? How many did they have? 3?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe 4. One of our friends put on Facebook yesterday too. Wonder why they didn't have these protests in Benson or Dunn. You know where they had the biggest one in Johnston County?
Who?
Clayton.
Oh, that's the one I saw.
Yeah.
That was at Clayton. It was at Town Square.
It was at the town square in Clayton.
Thank you. I couldn't remember where I read it was at.
That was the big one. So ridiculous. Did you hear Trump's response to the No King's Day protest?
No.
The best one he had was, we actually do like kings. One in particular, the King and King, Lord of Lords, our, Savior Jesus Christ. Maybe you've heard about him, he says. That was hilarious. But another time he got asked about it, he was doing an interview. He said, man, I'd be honest with you, I sure don't feel like a king. I got to depend on Mike Johnson in the House. I can't get nothing done. He said, if I was a king, it would be happening. Yeah. Crazy stuff.
Somebody's funding all that. That's when I read it in the news and brought that website up and then it started whatever. I was like, this is pretty sophisticated.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's spending a bunch of money.
It was very well organized to be able to go around like that. Yeah.
You can't put something together that quick without some big backers.
It's so hard to take them serious though, man.
I tell you what, me and Julie, another interesting thing, and boy, we really are rambling today.
Well, it happens.
But we watched that Angel Studios movie, King of Kings, that cartoon last
Oh, yeah?
night. Yeah.
How was that?
It was actually pretty good. I mean, they had a couple of things off, more really it's chronological things.
Mm-hmm.
But it was good. I think it's good for kids.
Cool.
I liked it. Yeah, the chronological stuff kind of made me mad a little bit, but whatever. I was Like, come on, why'd you do that?
Yeah, why'd you mess it
Why'd
up?
you have this here when you could have you covered it?
Yeah.
You could have had it in the right place. But anyhow, I don't know why they did that, but it's not like there's any false doctrine in it or anything.
That's
Pretty good.
Something for kids. Speaking of the kids, I shared a video with you guys this weekend. Just to curious. So there's a missions group that's sending off a bunch of teenagers. And they have they do it every year. And before they go, they all meet for like a I don't know if you I mean to me it looked more like a pep rally, but it's like a training and preparation week before they send them off into the mission field. And they have the videos and stuff, but this particular one, you know, they had like a band up on stage playing some, I don't know if it was considered rock and roll, not like rock and roll like I used to listen to, but, and then like a mosh pit. And then one of the leaders, the guy up there, bigger, older dude, jumps off the stage, you know, gets carried around by the kids. I don't know. It seemed a little, I don't know, man. I had so many, like, you know, like what, you know, my feelings were all over the place. Like what's happening here?
I don't know. I guess I did too. I don't think it's. Yeah, I'd have to have more information, really. Mm-hmm. It really, to me, it was kind of light. I can see where it's wrong. It could be wrong. Because I've been in real mosh pits. I mean,
right.
I used to be into the, you know, the hard psychobilly stuff and everything.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time with Cat's Cradle, that kind of deal, you know.
Right. Yeah.
That was a far cry from anything like that. The thing that bothers me with it is the age of the kids. That's what bothers me. It's a high school kids, man, you know, and you're preparing them to go out to do international missions. We really have to think of the missions field as a military zone. I mean,
yeah.
Honestly, you do. That's the way you have to see it. And when you're in the military, they take kids. I mean, actually, absolutely. These guys are, you know, 18 years old, but they turn them into men really fast. And they train them well for combat. And I don't think people look at the missions field that way a lot of times. It's almost like they're, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it's there has to be a gauge somewhere. You can't send. We talked about this earlier before we ever started the podcast. But some places are very, I'm just going to say it. Some places that we send missionaries to are extremely demonic, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Places like Africa and things like that. That's no joke, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of demonic activity. There's multitudes of people and cultures that are possessed.
Yeah.
You can't play with that stuff.
So dangerous.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, dangerous.
It's dangerous. There's places where you can send missionaries where it's not so bad, you know?
Yeah.
But I think you have to prepare them for war. And I don't think that kind of stuff is preparing them for war. I just don't. I think in a way it's dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah. It brings up several thoughts. I mean, so just a little more background. Like I know that when all the kids come back, they always put on a program for the parents. You know, like check out us. We went to, and they go everywhere, man. They're not all going to the same country. They're going all over the place. But then they have like one great big, I don't know what you call it, commencement. Is that what it is? Does that happen at the end? I don't know. I guess whatever. And I remember the one time they were having this thing, and one of the leaders got up there and told all the parents right off the bat, you're probably going to see some things that you might not approve of, but we're not really concerned about your approval. We're going to worship the way we want to worship. And, on the surface, if someone's paying attention, you're like, wait a minute, did you just tell my kid it's cool to be rebellious? Like you don't care if we're offensive.
Yeah.
right? You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so that's one thought I have on it. The other thought, I don't think it made me uncomfortable for no reason to watch it, right? I think that there was a reason why when I saw it, I got uncomfortable. Um, you hear people say all the time stuff like, whatever the parents tolerate, the children will embrace when they get older. It'd be okay. It won't be tolerance no more. It'd just be fine.
Right.
And there's this degeneration of standards, even if you will, or how serious we're taking this whole walk with Christ, Christianity thing. And I mean, so many questions come in. What about, be not conformed to the world? Like, I get it. We're not pulled out of the world. We're still here, but are we left with only being able to use the world's methods to engage our kids and younger kids and teenagers? Is that the only way you can get their attention?
Well, we could go way overboard on this.
That's fine. Jump out.
Seriously, we can. In our discussion with this, and we had another party that was in the discussion, and I was talking about boundaries. We got to know where the boundaries are. At the same time, when Christ met people where they were, right? That's one of the boundaries. We need to understand, we can't put ourselves in a box as going out and reaching people. The church also can't stick to tradition, and that's part of the problem that I have sometimes. I don't like stuff that happens when I first see it because I don't think it's the traditional. It just doesn't look right to me because it's not old-fashioned kind of church stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It may be a song that they sing in church, and I'm like, it's not that it has bad doctrine. I just like the old gospel music. It's dangerous to get stuck in tradition. It's wrong to be in tradition, right? It's not good. Then you have the other extremes. Are you moving over into worldly stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, man. That whole thing, kind of what I saw. I don't have I wish I knew more about it. I guess there's not enough there. But it bothered me too because it seems to me there that went beyond breaking traditional views, or it's outside of all of that. I think maybe the music is okay, but that whole thing of jumping into like a mosh pit thing, I think that goes a little bit too far because you have an adult that's setting the example for teenagers who are maybe going into a dangerous place, and they're not mature enough yet.
No way.
You get.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Together.
I know what you're saying. So, just thoughts on that. So I agree that, Christ did meet people where they were, but Christ did not use where they were as a method of luring them to him.
Right. But I think the music, maybe being some more hip gospel music and the concert and stuff, I think that's, that's okay.
There are some more modern. We don't have to stick with the hymn book every single time. We could sing some other songs. I think the idea is that what I'm trying to get across is that we do have to understand where they are and not expect them to be anywhere else. Okay.
Right. And then it also shows them praising, and the way that we're doing that, I think is fine. I wouldn't call that a mosh pit necessarily. But,
So as we meet them where they are, there still has to be something distinctly different about us while we're at that spot from the world so they can see a difference. If we don't have something distinctly different in us when we are meeting them where they are, then what would they think they have to change from? Does this make sense? I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I get it. I'm all along with
it.
Yeah.
And so, whenever, this is with adults too, not just kids, but I want to focus on the childrens right now, because I think that a lot of things that we get messed up in our youth type programs, for one, we're not challenging our kids enough, man. You see what I'm, so like, even the younger ones, you take a younger kid at church and you have a youth program and they have, kids church or, youth group on Wednesday nights and adults being on Wednesday night, and we're having open conversation about Bible study.
Mhm.
And the goal, I hope, is always that one day our children will be at a level that they can understand in-depth discussions on a Wednesday night, for example. I'm just saying, for example.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I spend, 10 years from the time they're 5 to the time they're 15 in a youth program that has them do a 5-minute coloring sheet on his coat of many colors, and we never really challenge them to the point that they actually have to think and engage for a period of time. I'm even talking about, 30 minutes. Give them something
Right.
to challenge them. Then by the time they're 15, they're still going to want to color Noah's Ark with all the animals hanging out. They're not going to be ready to talk about anything else. And I think we do a disservice to them by not challenging them for that. I think that in addition to the not preparing them like these kids to go into a mission field, which can be spiritually dangerous if you're not prepared. I think in addition to that is, I don't know, man, it's almost like it's making light of what we're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying.
And you wonder why whenever they finally get to be 18, 19, 20 years old and they, start out on their own, why they walk away from the religion. It's because it's not that big a deal ever. It's never been a big deal for them their whole childhood. It's almost like you're coddling them to the point of just so we can keep you having fun. We're less focused on what you're learning and more focused on if you're entertained. I think that's the best way to say it.
Okay, so let me put it this.
Help me out,
let
please.
me say
Please.
Let me say it this way, and I really didn't want to get this deep into the whole video, but I will. I think if you had this group of teenagers and you're getting ready to go into the missions field, and really what they're doing is kind of like a vacation in a way.
That's
right?
what it turns. That's what they're doing now.
What it's turned into. I think bringing that kind of music in for the teenagers is meeting them where they are. I think that those teenagers, and there's a couple adults in the crowd, the way they're praising and worshiping, I think that's okay too. I think that's kind of where they are. Where I have a problem is when the leaders, the heads of the thing, turn and become the teenagers and jumps into the crowd for them to catch him.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it falls apart. Because now those who, I'm a firm believer, is like your pastor or your Sunday school teacher or your whoever it is in a position in the church of authority, you have to respect that person. You honor that person, right? You obey that person. I think the Bible tells us that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like my pastor now, I look up to him. We're not equal because of his position. When you're a Sunday school teacher, you're one of my best friends, man, but still I look up to you because you're in that position.
That's terrible.
Kids,
I'm sorry.
Well, it doesn't matter. Those kids are looking up to that person who just became another teenager.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem I have with it. Total failure.
Yeah. So, this kind of goes back to our Why So Serious podcast, and I'm going to take the hard-nosed conservative stance today on purpose. Okay, just say, where does order to worship fit into all of this?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. It just fell apart.
Yeah. And then order and reverence.
It just fell apart.
Yeah. And then by saying that we're forced to use, I know the songs we're singing about God. However, they resembled very heavily worldly songs, like that, just normal rock and roll stuff, right? And I know that's appealing to the world. For us to say that we have to, or even that it's okay for us to use those type methods to lure them in, to maintain them, is that not discounting the power of God's word in the first place and its effectiveness on its own?
Yeah, but I don't know that they had to use those methods to lure them in.
I don't think they have to either.
I'm not saying I guess what I'm saying is I don't know enough about the video or what was happening to say that that's what they were doing with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I do know is one of the leaders jumped into the crowd. That's what I do know.
Yeah.
Right. The
Yes.
other stuff, I don't know that they used that music to lure them in or anything else. If it was just plain worship, right?
So I guess a follow-up question, because, discounting God's word and the Holy Spirit's effect on individuals' lives and stuff, and, how can they hear if they don't have a preacher, and faith increases by the word of God. Uh, all of these things, they just keep coming to mind. And so the question then becomes is like, how many of those teenagers would have shown up to go on this mission trip had they known off the bat that when we get there, we're going to be reverent, we're going to be serious, we're not going to be bouncing all around having a party. If that's what they were doing, you know what I'm saying? If that's what they were doing, because that's what it appeared,
Yeah, I don't have enough information to answer that.
And I think that the answer to that question would probably be that a lot of them would not have shown up.
I don't know that though.
Well, of course, I've got a little more background in it. That's why I can make these opinions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's very possible. Yeah.
So I've got a little more involved. In fact, I've been involved. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It is absolutely a way to keep the kids. Well, guy we were talking with in the text chat this week says, whatever you win them with is what they'll be won to, and what you'll have to keep them with.
Right.
Whatever those methods are. And I don't know. It just seems like we are not taking things as serious as we should, because it is a very serious thing. We're more concerned with how many can we get. Americans have this mentality when they go into a mission field, man. I just go ahead and tell you, and I don't mean it ugly, but it's the truth. But not all of them, but a majority of Americans have this mentality when they show up on a mission field anywhere outside the country that, hey, we're Americans, we're awesome, we know better than you, we're going to show you the right way to do it because we're cool. This is going to be something that we can glorify ourselves with. Right. Literally, check out the project that we completed that they couldn't do by themselves. Give us a big old pat on the back. That is the opposite of what your mentality should be like when you head to the mission field.
Right.
But that's the one they have. And then when you're training your kids, teenagers, we're getting ready to go send you on a week or two mission in a foreign country, and it's going to be the time of your life. You're going to have so much fun, and let's have a pep rally to get ready. And one, I don't think you're preparing them. Two, I think you're setting them up for the fact that Christianity sometimes is ugly. You see what I mean? And it's all of those things combined, the lack of reverence, the lack of order, the lack of seriousness, that causes us to lose them when they become adults and they find out, hey, this is not all it's cracked up to be. I don't want to be involved with this anymore. And I think it would be a much better tactic to show them reverence and the holiness of God, and how serious and sincere we should be about what it is that we're doing in this work, so that when they do turn adults, when they do have those glorious moments, now they can celebrate and be joyful in those, and the bad ones don't seem that bad because we've trained them that, hey, it's going to be tough sometimes. Does that make sense?
Sure. But from my position, sitting here right now,
yeah,
I don't know they don't do that.
Well, I can tell you.
Maybe that's the problem.
That's the problem with the position. I wish you could see more. Yeah. And I don't want anybody to just take my word for it. I guess the where I lead with all of that stuff is I wanted to just bring up youth programs in general, right? Man, it's so important that we start training our kids young.
Yes.
So important. And not only do we start training them, but we have to challenge them. Man, that part of the problem with kids in public schools and everywhere else, the reason they're not so concerned about education is they're not challenged. They're bored to death, man. We look at them like we treat them like they're idiots. And look, I know everybody's at different level. Perfect example. So my wife has been doing this first priority thing at elementary school. Is that right? Yeah, the younger ones, 3rd through 5th grade. And she would go once a week before school. They would have like, it's like an hour long. They have like a Bible lesson and stuff. They sing a song, you know what I mean? But that whole 45 minutes or whatever that they're in there is dedicated to a lesson. It's very structured. It's very organized. One's building on the other. It's just following a pattern. And the goal is to get them engaged to the point that they can actually start taking over and give some of these lessons or be involved, inviting other people in. I mean, all this is strategic. And so this past year, when she started, she had one girl. It grew to over 20. I can't remember exactly how many. And then this past year, like at the beginning of the year, Sarah just so happened to be off of school. And so she's in 5th grade, so she would have been like the oldest one. And so she went one time and Sarah gave the lesson to the kids. Well, immediately there were volunteers from the public school system wanting to give lessons on the next ones. And so they started teaching, if you will, quote unquote, these Bible lessons while, Nicole and the adults, all you're doing is you're just directing them. You challenged them. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If you compare that method to what I see whenever we visit other churches and Sarah ends up going to the children's church or whatever else, man, you talking about a watered down lesson. I mean, I know, I don't want to say it like Sarah's different, but to a point she is, but it's because we haven't watered it down ever. Sarah could sit in Wednesday nights with us at church and be fine. She's 11 years old.
Yep.
And there's no reason why other kids can't be that way. I watched youth programs across the big pond down there, and I've watched it mature over the years. 9 years or so I've watched it, and you see these kids who started when they were young. Now they're teenagers. Next thing you know, man, they're having their own little Bible studies with kids from their school, and that don't happen here, man. You know what I mean?
No, it doesn't.
I don't know. I just wonder if we just don't take it serious enough. If our expectations of children is what's the problem with the youth programs?
I don't know. That's a very interesting question. I think the adults are relaxed in the United States too, though.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I guess that spills over to the children.
It goes right back to whatever we tolerate, they will embrace. And if we tolerate being slack in our Christianity, then they think, oh, well, slack Christians are cool. And then you wonder why we don't have more evangelism right here in our own little town.
The things that we brought up on this podcast, I think it's possible folks are starting to wake up a little bit. Because we go back and watch episodes, we've talked very much about how relaxed we've been, and what you just said, tolerating things. Look how much has slipped into the United States.
Terrible.
That when we were, well, I'm much older than you, but when we were teenagers, you didn't see any of this. You didn't see the LGBT, the alphabet people have the power and Pride Month and marches, and I mean, might as well say that pedophilia is an okay thing now.
Yeah.
That's next. That's what's coming next. As a teenager, we couldn't even imagine those things being the norm. And look what's happened. And I think people are starting to wake up. Maybe that's what we need. I don't know.
So think about it like this.
Other countries even some countries that most Americans don't like, do not tolerate those types of things.
I think there's a principle that we get from Scripture that goes from parenting to being leaders of congregation to even how to train your children as a youth guy or whatever you're doing, a pastor or having. And that is, as parents, we don't have to be our children's friend. Right. I think that's dumb. That's a desire that people have. They want to be the kid's friend. I want him to like me. I want him to love me. I want our relationship to be great. And the desire to have a good relationship with your kid is not a bad desire.
But don't you think people are starting to realize there's consequences for that
There's absolutely consequences.
And now they're starting to see it.
And so what you can be is you can be your child's parent and a trainer and a teacher. And that what that does is that builds trust, because my parent has always been consistent with me, always told me the truth, even when it hurt my feelings. And then whenever they can trust you because they know you're not going to lie to them, now you build a good relationship. On the other hand, if all my parent did was coddle me to the point that I could do whatever I wanted to maintain some type of, love relationship between them, when things do get tough and they go astray and now we don't get along, they don't, what in the world? You were okay with all this stuff growing up. It's backwards. It's the same as our relationship with God. We talked about this last week. God doesn't change. There's consequences to our decisions. But that is part of the most comforting thing in my relationship with God. I don't have to worry about whether or not he is going to change his mind or be wishy-washy or be lenient, or tolerant. I know what his standards are. Because I know that he's consistent and what his standards are, I can trust him, and that makes me dependent upon him more. Same way when you get to your youth program, these youth guys, they're bringing in kids. If you're using a method to bring them in of entertainment, which I know we're going to entertain them. Don't get me wrong. There's games and all kind. I'm not saying don't entertain the kids, right? Kids got to play, right? What I'm saying is that if that's all we do, if we're trying to be their friend and be cool so that they think we're hip, and that's what we get them there for, then what happens when we're not cool anymore? And I'm telling you, you just start off, don't be cool, but be real.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? Be real. Tell them the truth. Hurt their feelings when their feelings need to be hurt, but be there to pick them back up. What will happen is that friendship and trust will come because they know, hey, man, that guy, it's been tough. I'll give you for a perfect example, and I hope Corey don't mind. Rodney was Corey's youth pastor when Corey was a kid coming up through church. And man, Corey, I'm not going to say that he hated Rodney, but it was like annoying because Rodney would just be like, hey man, he had it saying, DBD, don't be dumb. Mm-hmm. You're being an idiot. Stop it. But Rodney took the time every time they did something stupid to tell him, hey, that's stupid. This is why it's stupid. This is the results of being stupid. It was I'll take as much time as you so you can understand why I am correcting your behavior right now.
I think Rodney's a perfect example of a wise leader.
Yeah, he is.
Because he knows.
Don't tell him that. His head get real big.
I don't care. At the same time, he would use things. Okay, I'm not saying it's like a modern Christian music, but Rodney knows how to use things to gain their interest. But once they come in and have that interest, we're going to have this time. But it's going to get serious too. Well, and that's what that's a wise leader.
That is a great example too, as far about using things like what can we use then to reach them where they are? Well, you don't have to use worldly music to get them.
No,
you can use all kinds of stuff.
At the same time, I'm saying you can, they get their interest, but there's a stopping point there. It's just like the Easter Fest, right?
Yeah,
we use that, and people come in, and we share the gospel with them, right? But that's as far as it goes.
That's it.
That the whole purpose is sharing the gospel. So that video, I get it with the music and stuff, but dude, it became when that guy jumps off the stage, it was
out of control, man.
It became
so out of control.
It's no longer about sharing the gospel. It just became something else. That's the way I see it.
That's all it was.
Yeah.
But like fast forward now, Corey's in his 20s. And when we first started going to Brazil, Corey was still hesitant to go because he still saw Rodney as the youth pastor, and he's going to tell me all the things I've done wrong. However, what has happened over the past couple of years is Corey realizes, hey, man, those are some tough conversations we had. But that dude loved me, and I know he loved me because they were tough, and he did it anyway.
Right.
And I know, Corey says, now I know that if I had a problem, I could talk to him, and I could expect an honest answer, whether I liked it or not. Doesn't mean I have to do what he says, but he's going to tell me the truth, and he's going to back it up with a principle or a precept out of the word.
Absolutely trust Rodney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that didn't come because he just wanted to be his buddy.
Yeah. It works too. I've been through some stuff with my kids. I just throw it out anyhow. I guess my daughter's one that really sent me for a loop because of the way she can have, sometimes she can get really mad and hold a grudge. I guess she's like me a little bit. But there's been times when, you know, you hit the order that we're talking about, which is everywhere. There's also an order in family. And there's been times when her and her mother have disagreed on stuff, and I actually agreed with her. I've been through this with my son too. Mm-hmm. But I had to tell her, look, when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter if I agree with you or not. If your mom's right or wrong, doesn't matter. I got to stand with mom. Mm-hmm. So don't go too far because you're going to be out the door.
Right. Yeah, right.
Right. It doesn't matter if mom's not right.
Yeah.
She actually comes first. And that's hard to tell your kids. I've had to tell my son the same thing. You know, I'm going to stand with mom. Right or wrong, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And that's one of those principles that's hard to relate to your kids. But I asked my daughter one time, I said, how did that make you feel? She said, that's the most secure thing I've ever heard.
Yep.
She said, I held on to that. I really did, because I always knew that was going to be there. Mm-hmm. That bond was going to be there. So it made me feel secure. And that just blew my mind.
They trust you because you're not going to sway.
Yes. It's like, they just, you know, even today she falls back on that. She told me that. And I'm like, that's crazy.
So I junked up being a dad for probably 8 to 9 years of Corey's life. I mean, I was just like, whatever, dude. Hey, if you want to have fun, do this, whatever you want to do. And then I remember we got to a point, I was like, you know what? I'm about to mess up bad. And so I remember distinctly sitting down with Corey one time being like, hey, man, look, I know you're probably not going to understand this, but this is all my fault. I have done some stupid things, and we have to make some corrections, and they're going to be confusing. And so we went through this whole thing about stuff that we were going to change in our behavior, things where I was allowing to happen that shouldn't have been allowed to happen for an 8 or 9 year old kid. You know what I mean? And all the time blaming myself, so hopefully he would understand that. He didn't catch it all, right? On the surface, he was like, "This is crap, man. What kind of junk is this?" And now it's not okay. And there was a little bit of spite in there.
Oh boy, I've had to go through that.
But one of the things there in that conversation, when I told him, I said, "But look, I'll make you a promise, and that is, I will never lie to you, ever. I'm not going to, and I never have. And a lot of times I'm probably a little too blunt. However, same thing happened. We got past that. There was my dad's a jerk phase for several years. You know, I'm sick and tired of this guy. And tell all his friends how bad your daddy is, and I get it. You know what I mean? But what's happening again? That he's understanding. Now that stuff's starting to make sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
And going back to where we started again, I think if you do that with these kids and they get out in the field, they need that.
They need that.
They need that foundation. I mean, all the fun and stuff is fine, but if they actually get out in the missions field and start doing something, those things will come back. They'll run into that bad situation or that fearful, whatever.
What I'm afraid of the most is what we're teaching the kids is that you just go out there and act just like the world if you want to. It's cool. And then every time you get a chance, then try to tell them that, by the way, what we are doing right now together probably ain't the best thing for Christians to be doing. You can't do it that way. Go out there and have fun, but be different.
Right. You still have Christian liberty.
Right. Yeah. Be different and be distinguishable and let it be obvious. Yeah. And that way, whenever people ask you like, hey, why are you different?
Why do you have this line right here?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Where do you get that sort of standard from in your life? What is it that you're taking so serious that you're not willing to compromise your standards of belief on it? You see what I mean?
Yeah. I get it.
And we can teach them that, kids. We can teach them that from the time they're 5 years old even. Doesn't take long. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, that's a rant. That thing bothered me bad. And again.
It does me too. But I don't have as much knowledge as you do or experience with that stuff. But
yeah, I was sitting in that parent group one time when they were like, hey man, we know y'all aren't going to like some of these things, but we don't care if you like it or not. I was like, wait a minute. What are you really teaching our kids? You said, you said that out loud in front of them to the parents. Like, listen to me, not your parents.
Wow, that's not cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
It made me uneasy too, and I felt that like that line got crossed when the guy jumps off the stage and has the kids catch him. That's like a little too far.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't either.
I'd have to see all of it, I guess.
Yeah. You know, the scary thought about all of this stuff is, and Corey and I talked about this week too, and that is, well, for us, like right now, our generation, we're the ones that are starting to be in charge, right? We've reached that age. You're looking around and like, oh man, I mean, I got friends on councils and, you know, and I'm like, oh man, I know my generation.
Yeah.
You know, and then I was telling Corey, I was like, you know, like one day your generation is going to be in charge. And he was like, oof. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And is it something you can correct? What was that guy's name? Yuri Bezmenov. Remember him, the Russian KGB guy? He's on the League of Logic page on the research.
Yep.
First thing you got to do is to take away all the morals in the country.
Yep.
And you can destroy it from the inside. Well, that's pretty much what's happened. He said it's a 20-year or so process. And then he turns right around and he says, you can reverse it, but it's going to take another 20 years to reverse it.
I hope we're in that time.
I do
that's
too.
what I was trying to allude to earlier. I think it was,
it's got to be.
We've seen the morals be wiped away.
Yes.
Right. And I think people are realizing there's consequences for that.
Yeah.
So hopefully they're going to want to go a different direction.
Man, that's the hope.
And, when you have over 50% approval rate with Trump, and he's got all his faults and everything, but look, he's kind of conservative when it comes to those morals.
Yeah.
And people like it, the path we're heading. Maybe they understand the consequences now. I don't know.
It's got to feel more secure, even if you don't like the man.
Yeah.
You know what to expect.
I think that's what we're seeing.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. I reckon that's all I got to say about it.
One weird podcast.
Yeah, well, it may not be any good, but we're going to put it out there anyway. All right. You good to go, man?
Yes.
All right, then, folks. We'll see y'all next week. Thank you for listening to another episode of the League of Logic podcast. We hope something that we have said has made you think or made you mad, as long as both make you think. If you need some help in this journey in the search for truth, we'd like to invite you to check out our website, leagueoflogic.com. And on that website, you can find some study tools with the 4 basic pillars of logical thinking. Help you on your journey. They're important. Also, we're on, there's a contact us page on that website. We would love to hear from you. Some questions or comments, some reviews, some complaints, whatever you got. Tell us something we got wrong. Give us your opinion. We're enjoying listening to those. Also, check us out on all the social media platforms. We're on X and Truth and Facebook and Rumble and YouTube now, maybe for one more at least until they hear about our all family medical. But check those out. Hit a like, a follow, a subscribe, and share it. Help us to get the word out, and that would be greatly appreciated. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, and we hope you guys have a good week, and we look forward to you tuning in on the next episode.